Hello, I hope you're all doing very well, and welcome to this Kpop podcast. In this podcast episode, we're going to be discussing RM and his solo album, BTS, some predictions, and sharing my insight on what I think's going to happen. And I wanted to talk about solo projects in general, as well as TXT and their recent concept trailer. So let's get on with the podcast. Firstly, let's talk about Rap Monster's album. Of course, in true BTS and ARMY style, the album seems to be doing well for a BTS member's solo endeavor. The music video has already received 20 million views in 3 days, which I think is pretty decent. What would you say? I wanted to discuss the solo album and the concept surrounding it, as I have a few thoughts. I've always wanted to talk about Rap Monster, and I will eventually make a video about him at some point in the future in regards to how he really contributed to BTS. But what I do want to talk about is how the concept of Namjoon's album and the meticulousness of how he constructed it really slides a piece into the whole puzzle. The way he used wordplay, Indigo, the denim fabric for the teaser, using the Korean word for fireworks, and crossing it with a field in his title song to indicate how both can be just as dazzling, even if one is silent while the other is loud, Namjoon has started a burgeoning interest in art, and this album clearly was inspired by his love for art. This album he created is his own self-expressionist discography. And I think it also shows the way he thinks, the meticulousness of it all and how the pieces come together, the clues, the hints, and the deep emotional meaning behind the album. Indigo was an album that mourned and celebrated the end of Namjoon's 20s, and how he survived, grew, and developed from it, and how transitioning from 20 to 30 feels like putting on a new pair of jeans. At first, tight and uncomfortable, but soon they'll give. They'll become comfortable. And I think the way he thinks and constructed this album kind of clicked with me how much Namjoon has contributed to the storytelling and deep emotional moral message and story within BTS's story, all the way from the beginning. And especially if you remember, through the Run era to Blood, Sweat and Tears, seeing RM's solo project made me realize just how much those concepts in BTS's lore and history most likely were contributed by Namjoon. He's extremely reflective and has a way with words. He's not afraid to discuss the hard truths and tap into human emotion, translating art into something conceptual for BTS. For example, a lot of ideas and concepts of the Blood, Sweat and Tears music video was due to Namjoon. He was reading a book at the time called Demian by Hermann Hesse or Hess. Sorry if I butchered the name. But that book was used as an inspiration for the motifs scattered throughout the music video. And even in the break where Namjoon reads a line, you know, the part where he says, he too, that was quoted from this particular book. I really liked that, and I think everyone really enjoyed the storyline and hints and clues scattered throughout that midsection of BTS's work, and I wish they'd stuck with it as it was strong, empathetic, and extremely relatable, as their lore wasn't fantastical like TXT or Enhypen. And I love their lores, by the way. But what made BTS different was that their storyline and lore originally was all based in human emotions and experiences, moments in life that they felt and gone through. So when they said love yourself, it was words of encouragement from a group who were going through or had gone through the same exact struggles as their fans. That's what made BTS feel so relatable, and I get a sense through Namjoon's solo how much he contributed to that. I'm not trying to reduce the other members' contributions at all, and I'm not knocking any of the other members' hard work or solo work, which I'm a fan of, but I simply wanted to acknowledge and highlight how Namjoon's inner mind and his style contributed to BTS's discography overall. It's also interesting, and I noticed this when Mark released his song Child on NCT Lab, just how different members' musical tastes are once they're allowed to release a solo. I would have never thought that J-Hope enjoyed the rock emo genre so much, and that was an interesting departure. I honestly thought his album would be mic drop but in different formats. Jin was sort of how I guessed his solo would be. I did think it would be slightly more like Epiphany, but who would have thought he'd perform a song produced by Coldplay? And now with RM, he created an almost cafe easy listening album. I thought it would be hard underground rap, something like No More Dream, where he'd be going back to his roots. But instead he's discussing emotional and lethargic topics for most of the tracklist. It's really interesting how different each member's solo endeavours have been to their own group's main music. I'm interested to know if you liked the album, or if there's a particular member's solo endeavours you're more looking forward to. I'm sure we'll all enjoy whatever Jungkook releases, and I'm sure he will get people like Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande featuring on his album. I think Hybe's saving the big guns for him, but I am truly biting my nails for Jimin. I found Jimin's voice to be my thing. His musical style and solo music prior, i.e. Lie and Serendipity for instance, have such a melancholic vibe to them, and also being in minor, they've been music to my ears. Jimin's musical style, I would say, is like a romantic, i.e. the kind of music a romantic lead in a novel would sing, if that makes sense. And I do think that Jimin will release an album that just hits you right in the heart. And quick fun side fact, if you will. As you know, BTS are huge fans of Big Bang and were greatly inspired by Big Bang in terms of music and visuals and style. And Jimin, you can tell, was definitely influenced by Taeyang, which I absolutely love. They do have similar voices and enjoy a similar genre of music when they perform. And even their dance styles are similar, so I really love that. I like Taeyang's music, so I also like Jimin's. But just to wrap up RM's album, my personal review is that it wasn't my style. It's not my type or genre of music. I think overall so far I've preferred J-Hope's, probably because it was so different and I do like gothic type music. Of course, it doesn't mean that anyone's solo music is bad, and I'm sure that RM's album has reached his target audience. It just wasn't my cup of tea. But I understand that he poured his heart and soul into this solo, and I don't want to knock it. But I do think that it's nice that basically with these BTS members, who have been working for years and years to earn their creative and musical freedom, are finally able to do a little something for themselves, which is release this music for themselves. And this music feels, I'm not sure if I would count Jin in this, because I think Jin's solo song was very much a love note and a goodbye letter, which is very sad, but yes, a goodbye letter to the fans. But I think J-Hope and Namjoon's albums have been quite selfish, and I mean that in a good way. I mean it in a way that says, hey, I've been doing something for you all. I've been making this music with my group for you all, and I'm so glad that you've been enjoying it. But before I retire, before this all ends, I want to have this time for me, and I want to release something that's mine, something I love, and I'm happy with it. And here it is. Enjoy this part of me you may not have known existed, a true personal bit of me. And I think that's also why you can feel the pride they have in this solo music. And that stands for any member of the group that gets to release their own solo music. But I do think that it's also interesting and you learn so much more about a member by the solo music they release. You get a bit of an understanding more of the type of person they are with the music that they're allowed to make. That's why even if RM's album didn't suit my musical taste, I really appreciate that he was able to basically let the fans into a whole different side of him that you don't usually see because he's usually participating, helping to make BTS's music. So that's why I think it's great. It also reminds me of why I'm so happy that Taeyong got to release solo music through his SoundCloud and his YouTube. Clearly there was a big need for him, a big want for him to release the kind of music that he wants to release to the fans. And he always expresses how much he really hopes that his music reaches out and touches his fans because it's so personal to him compared to releasing something like Two Baddies, which, you know, he obviously still liked performing, but his solo music is more him. It's him writing his own poetry and singing it to you. So it's more of a piece of himself and his feelings. And that's why he really hopes that you will also feel the same way, or if you're going through the same thing, that his music will help you. So I really appreciate that these members get to release their own music. I love Lonely, I love Dark Clouds, and I love Fine, and they're so opposite to what NCT 127's music is, so I think that that's really interesting. moving on to NCT for a second, I'd love some more solo music from Taeil, and I'd love to hear what Haechan's genre of music is. I'm guessing he'd want to release something along the lines of jazz and R&B. Jaein, for instance, is someone I didn't think I'd enjoy his solo music at all, but Lost, which is not even an officially released song, and you can only hear on YouTube, is wonderful and touches my spirit. And Forever Lonely was a 90s R&B pop song I still listen to. 10 solo was excellent, and you could tell he loved performing that difficult choreo and pushing his body to its limits, and performing a song that also was quite sensual. The members seem to be hinting Jungwoo is next, but let's see. And because we were speaking of RM, let's mention another group from HYBE, TXT. They released their concept trailer as they're having a comeback in January, and man, it was cool. TXT are like Wavy to me. This frustratingly good group that doesn't get enough attention, that is equal to how much talent they have. They've been overshadowed by BTS, which of course makes sense because it's BTS. I'm saying this as a huge enhypen fan. I also think that it's sort of, I don't know, it's the HYBE hype skipped TXT for some reason, which I don't appreciate and I don't like because I think TXT are great. But I do really hope that with them, it's a sort of situation where they may seem like they're lagging behind, but then ultimately they're going to explode and just become absolutely huge. I think they're steadily becoming very popular. It's just taking a longer route because if you've noticed out of those groups in HYBE, TXT have been the most experimental, which I think says a lot about them. They can be so experimental because they have such a broad range. They're so talented, and whatever genre they dip their toe into, whatever concept, they nail it. And I think people are recognizing that and realizing that. But you have to enjoy that they dabble in different things. If you want to be their fan, you can't really expect that they're going to constantly release, a bubblegum main title track or a gothic main title track. They move from here and there. But I do appreciate definitely, and I think this is what makes their music so cool, whenever you listen to their albums, the track list really varies quite wildly in terms of they have a cutesy song, and then they have a sad boy song, and then they have a bit more of an emo song. I do think Thursday's Child was the most cohesive in terms of it felt the most emo sad boy. Whereas the previous Frost album was quite all over the place. You get Magic, then you get Ice Cream, and then you get, you know what I mean? Even I think the repackaged album had that Dooba Doo Wadi Wadi song, which I really like, by the way. And then, of course, you have Love Song. I personally really appreciate that. Whereas if you're someone that kind of likes the same genre of music from an artist and like them being continuously that, then I can understand why TXT would kind of confuse you and not have you on board. But when you stop and think about actually the way they perform in all their concepts and their music, you go, damn, the vocals are on point, the choreography's on point. Heck, even the way they act, I mean, Good Boy Gone Bad, the sort of acting through their choreography and the emotion that they're able to depict. I mean, they're not actors, but they're doing a really good job. So I've been enjoying basically everything TXT has released. And that's why I kind of say that they're similar to Wavy to me, because they just don't get enough attention for how good they are. It kind of also reminds me of SHINee. I know that SHINee basically also released very popular songs from the get-go, but I think SHINee is that solid group. It's a solid group that has excellent members all round with a big range, where the sum is as equal to the parts. The members are just as good individually as together in a group, very much in sync. But going back to the TXT concept trailer, which the title was The Name Chapter, it's already gotten 1.5 million views and it came out 4 days ago, so I think that's pretty impressive. You can definitely tell that the trailer is linked to their Starseeker webcomic storyline and also linked to their previous music videos and their concepts. For instance, Hwening Kai, I hope I pronounced his name right, at the end of the trailer, he actually jumps out the window at the video's runtime of 5 minutes and 53 seconds, which is the same time as Blue Hour, the Blue Hour music video title, the Korean title of Blue Hour. Obviously, as you know, there's like a running joke with TXT that they have really long song titles, and Blue Hour's song title contains the time 5:53. So that's the kind of detail you notice. I mean, I think even if you see the sky in that concept trailer when they're in the house that's tipping over, and I'm pretty sure that the house is the same. It reminds me of the We Lost the Summer aesthetic, the rooms that they were stuck in. Kai jumps at 5:53 seconds. So it kind of shows you how meticulous HYBE's storytelling department is and how they're really sticking to this TXT lore and really creating a big universe. I know that people complain, some people have complained about groups being restricted by their law and not enjoying that kind of restriction, but I don't think so. I think, yes, you can be restricted if you do the same thing over and over again with the same motifs, but it seems like what TXT are doing, what their story group are doing, is expanding their universe. So they're expanding their sandbox and how they can play in their universe. And I think that that's actually very creative, and it increases their ability to create bigger concepts and do different things. So I'm finding it really interesting. I can't wait to see what this comeback looks like. They were teasing a storybook type concept. It felt kind of like a mix of Alice in Wonderland with a Jack and the Beanstalk aesthetic. And of course, the house in the clouds kind of reminds me of the Ferris wheel in the clouds, which was also from Blue Hour. I do think the concept might be slightly less emo. They might keep the gothic concept in an underlying sort of creepy storybook way. It's hard to tell because their most popular song was Love Song, which was kind of a rock goth song, but this doesn't seem to have a love song vibe. It didn't seem very depressing. I'm not quite sure, but I'm sure we'll get a taste for it once they release the teaser for their title track. Do you prefer a happier, frothier vibe or a cutesy song? What's the genre you're hoping for from them? But I do hope personally that the track list has different types of songs, a cutesy song, emo song, gothic song, etc., to kind of satisfy and cover every corner of their fandom. The choice is theirs, but there's one thing for certain, and that is I'll be discussing my thoughts and feelings, publish a review, once this album comes out. And that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, then please give it a big old thumbs up and subscribe today for future content. Let me know what your opinions are in the comments down below. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!